This is an introductory video of the FloorplanGIS utility. My name is Aaron Chevront. I'm with the University of Washington. The FloorplanGIS utility is designed as a configurable tool to prepare CAD floor plans for integration with GIS. I'm working on a more in-depth video series, so this will just be a quick overview. Floor plans are the most basic foundation upon which other assets within a building can be mapped. For interior space world, the floor plans really are the new base map. As you can see here, there's a variety of ways to use GIS with interior space, but floor plans really are the first step. Before we begin, I want to go over a couple of requirements for using the utility. First of all, this is designed for use within AutoCAD and integrating within an Esri GIS infrastructure. So the only real requirement is that when you put together your CAD floor plans, there really needs to be one floor of one building per drawing. Also along with that, all of the floors within a building should share the same coordinate system, so the 0, origin point within the CAD drawings is always the same. If you were to insert those together, they would all kind of stack up on top of each other. The other requirement is that the drawing name needs to contain the identifiers for both the building and the floor. It doesn't really matter how that's structured as long as it's structured consistently. There are some other requirements, or not really requirements, but recommendations that will really make things easier in the long run, and some of those are things like grouping the floor plans for a building in a folder and only having that building within that folder. That's really going to help out with the georeferencing process. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into this, and I want to show you real quick that there is no magic being done. This is a look at the floor plans. I'll refresh that, and we can see that inside this CAD drawing we have our standard Esri feature classes, such as my polygons, which have, well, anything that qualifies as a polygon. My polylines, or anything that qualifies as a polyline. While this is possible to use, it is somewhat difficult and requires quite a bit of post-processing in GIS in order to utilize the drawings. So as we can see, also I do have a folder for the building, and then all of the floors within that building inside that folder. So let's jump into AutoCAD, and I'm going to start off with georeferencing the floor plan. So I'm going to open the site drawing. This system has also been pre-configured with the setup necessary of loading the tools. To cover those real quick, if I go into my options, a couple of things I need to make sure I have is that I have my code folder added to my support file search path, as well as added to my trusted locations. This will actually make things easier to run and cause less problems down the road. One thing that I have done is that in my startup suite, I have loaded in my FloorplanGIS utility. What this does, it'll allow it to run every time a drawing is opened. So I don't need to go in and manually load the file per drawing. If you don't want to put it in your startup suite, you can just load the utility manually from the load unload applications window. So when it comes to georeferencing using CAD, the main thing is that it works very similar to georeferencing in ArcMap. All we really need to do is bring in a representative sample of our floor plan, align it with our site plan, and in order to georeference our floor plan, all we really need to do is bring in a representative floor plan and align that with the site plan itself. Technically, you don't even really need a site plan. You could use an aerial image using the ArcGIS for AutoCAD utility and bring in a base map and just kind of get your floor plan to look kind of close-ish. A lot of this depends on what kind of site plan data you have. So this drawing has been set up to have my coordinate system assigned. So if I do a list coordinate system using ArcGIS for AutoCAD, you can see that I do have a Washington State plane coordinate system already applied. That is fairly important because a world file georeferencing process is all relative to the destination coordinate system, and a world file doesn't know anything about its coordinate system natively. So you do have to keep in mind that the world file is always relative to whatever coordinate system you're going to be bringing it into. So the way I do this is to open the XREF manager, and I'm actually going to XREF in my floor plan just to make sure that I've got the right data. So in this case, I'm actually going to use an outline file, and this file contains all of my building outlines, which also align with my site plan building outline. In this situation, I know I can actually specify my insertion point and rotation on the screen, and because I've defined my units in my floor plan as architectural inches and decimal feet in my site plan, the scaling factor has already been applied automatically, so I don't need to scale this at all. So now I've got my representative floor plan, and my building outline file is in the same coordinate system as my floor plan, so it does work as a representative of the floor plan itself. So this one I can pick this point here and then rotate it up to this point. Like I said, it doesn't really matter exactly where that is. It could be, you know, whatever kind of looks good for your site plan. In this particular example, it does align fairly well. So with that done, now I've got my floor plan aligned to my known coordinate system site plan, and I can run my create world file command, if I type that in correctly, and I'm going to go ahead and select my XREF. The nice thing about this is that it will automatically figure out where that XREF is located and prompt you to save the world file in that location. The main thing with this is that if you have all of your floor plans in the same coordinate system, you can use the esri_cad.wld file to apply the world file translation to all drawings within a folder. If your floor plans don't align, you would actually need to bring in each floor individually and save the world file with the actual drawing name, but with a .wld extension. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save on this one. And now if I go back to our catalog, and I'll do a refresh here, now when I look at my floor plan data, I can't find it because it's in another coordinate system, but it is georeferenced now. We'll come back to that. It'll make more sense later. Actually, I want to go ahead and bring that into ArcMap just to make that easy to see. So there we can see this is now georeferenced in the same orientation that I had before. The problem is it's still just basic CAD data. And if I turn on my base map layer, it does look like it's in the right place. So I'll go ahead and remove this one. So our site plan, our georeferencing is now done. I don't need to save the XREF. I don't need to save this drawing at all. This is just used to create the world file itself. So I'll go ahead and close that down. And now I'm going to open up one of my floor plans. And so in my floor plans folder, I have my building folder, and in my building folder, I have my two floors. So I'm going to start with the first floor. So since this system is using a configuration file, everything about the way the data is structured is all stored in the configuration file. And that includes things like the layer that I use for my polylines, my room number block that I need to have, the layer the room number block is on, and so on and so forth. It is very important that everything does match up because there's also error checking that's done that'll also be based on those same configuration values. So in this drawing, I have my room numbers as plain text. And I did that because we have a utility called replace room number. And this will allow you to replace text or other blocks that contain your room numbers with your standardized block. So if I select a room number, it'll actually convert everything, all the text in this case, on this layer into my standardized room block. And if I go in and edit this block, I can now see I've got my room number in my room number field, and I've got my room area as blank. Now, in order to populate my room area, I don't want to just go through and identify the square footage of each room and then copy and paste that into that block, because I'm going to use that as my link between my room block and my room polyline. So for that, there is a command called area tag, which will go through the drawing entirely and populate the square footage using a field to link the two elements together. So as I change a polyline, it will actually change the square footage. So I know these are linked up correctly. There are limitations in this in that there does need to be a room polyline around the room block for it to be linked up, and that room polyline needs to be on the room polyline layer. So if I need to create another room polyline, I'll come over here. This one is blank, and if I do my area tag command again, it won't link it because this is not on my room polyline layer. But if I change that to my room polyline layer, now it is linked back up. I do have another error issue over here where my room number didn't fit inside my room boundary very well, so it's been pulled off with a leader. In this situation, there really is no way to automatically bring these two together, so there is a command called area tag 1, or just A1 for short, which will allow me to manually select my polyline and my room number and create that link. Once that link is created, it's saved in the drawing and it doesn't need to be redone. Only if you remodel the drawing or make a revision would you need to make sure that your room numbers and your room polylines are relinked correctly. So with this, I will do my FloorplanGIS command. This will run my error checking, and also if there are no errors, it'll go through and try and prepare all the feature classes using ArcGIS for AutoCAD. So in this situation, I do have an error still. I've got 12 room blocks, but only 11 room polylines. And that's because I missed this one right here, room 106. So I go over and create another polyline and link those two together. I can run my area tag 1 command and manually link this. I don't like doing a global area tag often because if there are 2 room numbers within the same room, it may break something. So a lot of times it's easier just to use the individual connection utility versus globally reassigning everything. So now if I run my FloorplanGIS utility again, everything passes, and it actually created my feature classes and assigned my data. So in here, I have 3 different feature classes. I have a feature class for my floor plan lines, which include all of my architectural features. My floor area is defined as my building extents, which is my gross square footage area, and then my interior spaces, which are my rooms. And if I look at the definition of one of these, like my floor plan lines, I can see that I actually have some data pre-assigned as default values. Again, this is coming from the drawing name itself. So it's splitting up the drawing name and pulling the building ID and floor code values, and also building a floor ID. These are unique identifiers for the database, which will be fairly important later on. It's also identifying my layers to include in this. So I'm not picking up things like my room polyline layer, whereas in a basic AutoCAD polyline feature class, all of my room boundary polylines would be included along with all my walls. But I don't need those because it's really just line work that's dedicated for the polygons. And then my interior spaces have just my room polyline layers. So this also has data pre-assigned, but there are some that are created per object. So each room has its own data that needs to be assigned, and that's all done through the code. So once that is done, I'll go ahead and save that. Let's jump back over into our catalog, and I'll need to refresh my drawing. And now I can see I've got new feature classes. So if I look at my interior space again, apparently it's having problems rendering that, but we will bring that into ArcMap. Let's bring all 3 of these in. And because it's a CAD file, it doesn't have a coordinate system identified, and that's fine. The main thing is that I have all of my data here. And if I go in and symbolize my rooms as solids, I can see that I do have polygons. I'll turn off my floor area. And if I do identify on one of these rooms, I can verify that I do in fact have all of my room specific data for my room number, my space identifier, even my room square footage as calculated from AutoCAD. So with that being done, we now have the ability to convert the feature classes that are predefined with data in AutoCAD into GIS in a very simple process. It's more of converting a shapefile to a geodatabase than it is a CAD file to a geodatabase. And that about wraps up the introductory video. I encourage you to give it a try, and if you have any questions, let me know. You can contact me at my email, aaronch@uw.edu.